evening, everybody. My name's Scott Norris. I am the news director at the Democrat and Chronicle. And first off, I'd like to thank the Rochester National Jazz Festival for giving me this opportunity to recognize and say thank you to Gary Craig, who is a longtime reporter at the Democrat and Chronicle and former Times Union reporter. Gary has spent his entire career as a journalist who aims to make a difference, and not only does he aim to make a difference, Gary does make a difference. You might remember some of his stories in the late 1990s. His investigations and reportings led to the release of Betty Tyson, who at the time was the longest serving female inmate in the New York State system. He's also done many other impactful stories, including the Brinks robbery. He did thorough investigations and reporting on the Brinks robbery in the early 90s and the aftermath of Attica. And I could go on, and he's reported on the criminal justice system for years and years. And he, aside from being a great reporter and a great journalist, he is the most humble and kindest reporter I've ever met in my life. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate him for that. So thank you, Gary. He's also been a fantastic mentor for many, many, many reporters that have come through here. And aside from journalism, the one thing he probably loves as much is this festival. So that's why we're here tonight, because Gary loves this festival so much, he chose this evening as his retirement date. So with no more for me to say, thank you, Gary. Your legacy is going to live on with us for a long time. The floor is yours.
No. I only have a few minutes, so. First, I want to introduce my wonderful wife, Charlotte, and wonderful daughter, Brittany. Our other daughter, Eileen, and our husband, Josh, couldn't make it, but they're here in spirit. As Scott said, I love the Jazz Festival so much. I want to thank Gene and Amanda and Mark and John for this. I'm so honored to be part of this. I know I promised a story, so I'll get to that, because my friends are used to me saying, this is a segue that'll make no sense, so I'll get to that, I promise. But trust me, this week's been a little overwhelming, but were we to go into West Irondequoit tomorrow, where my wife taught for many years, people would come up to her and say, oh, there's Mrs. Craig and the guy she married. So I've gotten kind of accustomed to that through the years. I can't say enough about you. I don't get choked up. Sorry. I can't say enough about you folks. I really can't. You've become friends. You've become family. You've become colleagues. There are so many people I've worked with who deserves this just as much as I am. I don't say that out of some false sense of humility. It's so true. And I've worked with such wonderful, wonderful people. The family, again, has put up with so much. They're used to me on any vacation, like being in a New York restaurant, dashing out and dictating a story from tips we just got, writing a story in St. John, looking at the ocean, stopping on a trip to Virginia to call in tips about, of all things, Amy Fisher, Long Island Lolita, a story that we got that the New York City tabloids didn't have, by the way, so I'm particularly proud of that. So, yes, thank you. If you told, we moved here in 1990. It's the precipice of a particularly, what was then normal Rochester winter, which culminated with the ice storm. We knew nobody here. The editor who kind of brought me here had moved and left before I even got here. Charlotte was home with 2 young kids, and there were many times I was working with wonderful people, and I'd get home and we'd look at each other like, what the hell have we done? But now, after all these years, this place has become home so much, and it's so much because of you, and I can't say that enough. We love this region, we love the people, and again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I promised a story, a quick one, we'll see. I was at the new building. I'm doing, as typically I am, a tragic story about, sadly, a troubled woman who committed a heinous crime. You know, I know how to bring life to a room. And this woman had been through some terrible mental illness that precipitated this. So I'm trying to put together her life story and how we got here. I find a sibling that lives in Rochester. I dial what I believe to be the phone number. apparently missed because I go into my shtick. This is Gary Craig with the Democrat and Chronicle. By the way, I learned in the 1990s not to say DNC because I called Jean Harris of Scarsdale Diet murder fame, and she lit me up one side and down the other because she thought I was asking for money for the Democratic National Committee. So I started saying Democrat and Chronicle. And the guy interrupts me and he says, sorry, wrong number. But he says it with a particular sense of aggression, which was kind of uncommon to that statement. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. He says, oh no, by the way, 6 months ago, I called you with a public corruption story, and you said you didn't have time. So goodbye, a-hole, and slams down the phone. So, for one, he didn't use the truncated version of the word. Two, somebody needs to create an app that replicates the slamming of a phone, because that's really a lost art, so you could do that. Now, some people might have been bothered by this, and they might have taken this as like, oh, I'm upset and all. Being me, I admittedly wore this as a badge of honor because I felt I've gotten so entrenched and embedded in a community that I can call a wrong number and a person feels so visceral about my work that he has no trouble calling me an a-hole. And so I oddly wore that as a badge of honor. Oh, it's a weird way to segue to goodbye, but again, thank you all so much. I'm overwhelmed, I really am. Thank you.